or maybe the hotel H10 Universität is just 3 minutes from the university. So if you stay at another hotel, you might also come to the H10, because we cannot so quickly organize more. I'll give the floor to Tim Birtwistle to share with us some tools of equivalence. Tim, the floor is yours.
Yeah, good afternoon. Is the microphone in the right place? Can you hear? Yeah, okay, good, thanks. I can't tell. This age-old thing, coming last, is sort of a double-edged sword. So I started out with a presentation, and if I was starting out again now, I wouldn't start from where the presentation starts. So apologies, and that's what my presentation now looks like, with just sort of scribbles of everything that everybody else has said. So I'm just following on from my learned colleagues, and obviously they are, they've set the scene in such a tremendous way. I will try to cross-refer back to what has been said. And by the way, the slides are already on the website, I think. What are we missing? So, I'm a lawyer by origin, and therefore I play with words. It's what I do. That's my life. And therefore it's not surprising that the first thing I did was to look up a web-based dictionary definition of what equivalence is before moving on, because obviously this presentation was made quite a long time ago, and you can see that this was accessed on the 18th of October. So I have given it some thought. And with regards to equivalence, we have a definition there. And I think what's more important are the related words. So exactly, I don't like. It's too constricting, it's too restricting, it's a straitjacket, it doesn't allow for flexibility and adaptability, which are some of the key words that we've got. Autonomy and independence, crucial to a university. Mutual respect of diversity, cross-culturally, cross-border, cross-university, cross-discipline, cross-department, across the corridor. We all have to give due deference to our colleagues and to academic integrity and freedom. And also, we've also heard about mission compatible. You know, what is the purpose of your university, in your country, in your context? So I'm from England, which is within the United Kingdom, which has a totally different educational system from Scotland, which is also in the United Kingdom. And now with devolution, we have different systems in Wales and Northern Ireland. And last week, I was in Belfast speaking about mobility and the difficulties of mobility within the United Kingdom because of different fee structures. So, you know, nothing is simple. Higher education is endlessly fascinating and endlessly complex. What Dr. Henney said was equivalence of degrees or recognition of qualifications, which is the most important, and that output rather than input was the most important. And then we went through that. On the 28th of October 2011, the Directorate General for Competition in the European Union published an analysis of recognition of professional qualifications, looking at the sectoral directives and the particular directive, and also analyzing the input of ECTS, of qualification frameworks, of other Bologna reforms on this. It's a fascinating document. The executive summary is not long. The actual research that went into the document is immensely long. But I have it, and I can pass it to Giorgio, who can put it on the conference website quite easily. The executive summary is worth reading. So, lots to think about. What information? We've talked about information. We've talked about the developing market in higher education. We've talked about equivalence. We've talked about the benefits and detriments that we might encounter. And there are all sorts of aspects of information: reputation, promotional material, league tables and all the different facets of that, social networking sites. Let's not kid ourselves. You know, the students know much more than we think they know. And they check endlessly. What's the first thing you do when you're invited to go for an interview to a company or to give a presentation at a university? You look them up on the website. Then you Google them because you can't be bothered to navigate through their website because it's too boring. And the Americans talk about the 5-click syndrome. Nobody will click more than 5 times. They just give up. They go somewhere else. As part of my background, I'm currently working for an American foundation, which is based in Indianapolis, whose mission is higher education. And I spent a lot of time in the United States. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago as part of the American delegation to the EU-US Education Policy Forum. So I'm English, I'm European, I'm an EU citizen, I'm a UK Bologna expert, and I was part of the American delegation, which is for the 2nd year running that's happened. And I'm back in Washington, D.C. next week for another set of meetings. We're doing a whole set of tuning work in the United States with, I think it's 8 states now, plus the American Historical Association across the country, and also establishing what's called, they call a degree qualification profile, which is a qualifications framework for the United States. So it's not just Australia who's looking at this. It's not just Africa who's undergoing tuning. It's not just Europe that's undergone tuning or is part of the continuing process. Not just Russia. India's looking, China's looking, and the United States is very actively looking and taking what it thinks is good. So, Volker talked about learning outcomes. I am fully wedded to the idea of learning, the student learner, and therefore learning outcomes. So what we want is real academic equivalence of institutions for academic purposes. And who are the best people to do that? Academics, faculty, the people who are involved, we who know. Let's not let somebody else impose it. Let's do it. Let's be proactive. Let's take the lead. Learning outcomes plus level plus context plus content equals transparency and therefore gives equivalence. We have to marry all of those aspects together. Otherwise, we lose. And we want to be win-win, as was said originally. But we do have to look at why we bother with equivalence. Win-win, cooperation, mobility, research collaboration, and career prospects for students. Employability, yes, it can be a dirty word. We are not slaves to the market. I want to look a little bit later on at skills and changing patterns of employment. So who are we dealing with? Who are the learners? The 21st century student? They are, I think you will find, if you've had them at home, or like me, 2 grown-up children, little grandchildren. What do? They're so much smarter. My grandson is 15 months old, and he plays with a mobile phone. Not a real one, but he knows that those buttons are for something. My wife and I still struggle a little bit. So I was born in the first half of the last century. Not as long ago as Volker, of course, but quite a long time ago. So what do? Multitasking. They think they can listen to music, they can be on social networking sites, they can play games, they can chat to their friends, they can SMS, they can email, and they can study. And a lot of my faculty colleagues in America now ban laptops in their lectures. And when I left the university 2 years ago, where I lectured, and when I walked around, were they looking at the PowerPoint? Were they making notes? Well, they might have it on split screen, but they were doing a lot more besides as well. That's because my lectures are so boring. I'm a lawyer. I'm English. I'm male. I'm old. What can you expect? So, but they are high gadget savvy. They understand these things. It's meat and drink. It's warp and weft. It's easy to them. They want to learn, but they need an outcome that is in demand. Knowledge goes out of date exceptionally quickly in most subjects. Law and my colleagues would say, have you seen the latest case from the European Court of Justice? I said, oh, this was when I was Dean of the Faculty of Law. And I said, no, but I'm sure there'll be another one next week. And the knowledge moved on. But did I have the skills to read it, analyze it, take from it, and move forward? Yes, and that's what our students need. Are these tough times? Yes. They're tough everywhere, in different ways, to different degrees, economically, politically, socially, and in all sorts of ways. What's the profile of our students? Most in the future will not be campus-based. They won't be full-time. They won't be post-high school, 18, 19-year-olds, the top 10%. I have a pen. It's this nice pen here, which is from the foundation I work for, which says Goal 60% 2025. That's the American goal, 60% of the population with high-quality degrees. The EU 2020 strategy, 40% with high-quality degrees. Things are moving on. We have to move on with it. So these kids are very savvy, and they are heavy users of the internet. What's that doing? Don't do that. Go away. Oh, sugar cubes. Okay. Something's happening, but not much. So, all right, we'll do it this way around then, which seems to virtually. So tools are available. Somebody else earlier said, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's not do things that have already been done. But equally, I think as Volker said, and as other people have said, we have to contextualize. It's our context, it's our life, it's our university, it's our country, it's our culture, not anybody else's. And in the US, sorry to refer to it again, but you know, Texas is tuning engineering. We heard about engineering earlier, because they saw that they needed to take the engineering subjects forward, and they needed to get transfer possibilities from institution to institution. The European view is, it's easy in the United States, it works. It doesn't. That's why they're doing things. So we need to take hold of what we're doing. So we've got lots of tools, and we're going to quickly look at some of them. Of course, that doesn't work, so we're not going to do it that way. So we've already talked about qualification frameworks. National, in England, we have a qualifications framework and a credit framework. The two are not conjoined. Other countries have them joined. Volker was saying about Germany developing a single lifelong learning qualifications framework. Lots of complexities there, but they're good tools. And like the computer for most of us is a tool, a qualifications framework is a tool. It's not something to worry about or get hung up about. Program specifications, what is the degree? Where does it sit? How does it fit into the qualifications framework? What does it do? What are the learning outcomes? And what is the content? The diploma supplement has been mentioned. It's part of the Lisbon Recognition Convention. Therefore, it's a UNESCO Council of Europe document, not a Bologna document. And again, the United States is a signatory to the Lisbon Recognition Convention, just never ratified it, like many other countries. So it's a worldwide document, and it does give lots of information. It is a useful tool, and it's a techie tool, really. Once you work out what information needs to go in which section, then it is not an academic thing or a difficult thing. It is a programming thing, and you just press print. And you press print whether that's for 6,000 or 60,000. It just costs more with 60,000. Or you just store it electronically, and there are loads of people who will do that for you at a cost, of course. It is a market. This is a slide that was meant to build, and if the PowerPoint had been working, it would have. What we always say to people is, okay, what's a degree? Define a degree. Don't mention time, don't mention credits, don't mention country. So how do you define it? You don't say it's a 4-year degree, and it's 60 credits a year, and it's from the Lebanon, or it's from England, or it's from Germany, or Austria, or Palestine, or whatever. Define it in terms of learning. Learning by levels, hence a qualifications framework. Learning by volume. How much effort does a typical student need to be put into it? Volker mentioned it. Volker used the term average. I don't like average, I like typical. But, yeah, I'm just a lawyer. And what can they do with the degree? Post-graduation outlets. What does the degree create a pathway to enable them to do? And the Scots talk about their climbing frame. So they don't have a qualifications framework, they have a climbing frame. And you can go across the climbing frame, or you can go up the climbing frame. Qualifications frameworks aren't just ladders, they're more complex than that. So, how does it help? Is it a top-down instrument? None of us like top-down instruments, but yeah, it can be. It probably is. It's probably ministerial in a lot of countries. In the United States, of course, the Department of Education has no power, no money, no authority, and I will say, look at metrics. Look at complexities of countries, regions, and to say that Europe is homogeneous is as erroneous as saying the Arab countries are homogeneous, is as erroneous as saying the United States is homogeneous, or that Latin America is homogeneous. Everything has nuances of difference and different contextual situations, and we need to bear that in mind. Is a climbing frame useful? Yes, it maps things out, it shows interrelationships, and it's even more useful when it's talking to another qualifications framework, just as the German qualifications framework is mapped against the European qualifications framework and the European higher education area framework, as is the English framework. And we even have a little map that shows the interrelationship between the frameworks in Scotland, Ireland, that's the Republic of Ireland, Northern Ireland, England and Wales, a 5-country map which has been developed in the UK. This is a quote from Ireland, from the Irish Quality Agency. It's now easier, because of the qualifications framework, for everyone, learners, employers, providers and advisors, to understand the national qualification system. It's transparency, it's communication, it is mapping out, it is ease, and that's the purpose of it. And so it's a useful tool. This is a quote from Andreas Vargas. Whether the aim is to continue studies, seek employment abroad, a prerequisite for the mobility of students and graduates is recognition of their qualifications in another country. It makes life easier for academics, for students, for learners, for employers, for lifelong learners, for everybody. And that's the purpose of it. That's why they are useful. So what do we look for? These are quotes from Quality Assurance Agency in England, 2010 document, evaluation of the academic infrastructure. Impact and effectiveness, that's what the Qualifications Framework has had. The evaluation has demonstrated providers have engaged with and embedded within their own institutions policies and procedures. It's been taken on board, it's been taken inside the institutions have used the tool. And again, the recently revised framework is useful for program and module development, assessment criteria, descriptors, etc. It's another validation of the tool. It's a useful tool. Skills. This is a CDFOP, so a European Union document for 2010, a spider's web. We're much beloved of spider's webs and visual impact. But what it shows is jobs are changing. Georgetown University in the United States talks about bimodal jobs in knowledge economies. If I'm going to serve you with a coffee, I have to be there to do it. If I'm going to clear your table and wash the cup, I have to be there to do it. If I'm going to sell you car insurance, I can be anywhere. And I'm at the end of a computer or the end of a phone line. And for most in the UK, most of that goes through India, not through a UK site. If I'm going to be a brain surgeon, I need to be there to operate on your brain. So you're going to have high level, high skill, high input, high output, high educational achievement jobs and low jobs. The middle is going to be squeezed. And this is what this data shows from Europe, and this is what also, this data shows from the United States about the need for higher education. Also, of course, all the research shows from a social dimension, people with higher levels of education are healthier, they have better mental health, they have better social skills, they are happier, there is less suicide. There's a whole dimension that goes with this, as well as they come out of recession individually quicker, they have a lifelong learning premium, they earn more over their working life than people with lower qualifications, and so on. So there's lots of data that suggests that this is a good thing, and we're involved in good things. We've talked about terminology, semiotics, vocabulary, whatever you want to call it, learning outcomes from Volker. I like to add the word active in front, because we don't write them, put them in the desk and forget them. They are a tool that informs the way in which we work, and therefore they have to be active. Ratchet up. Bloom. I love Bloom. It's been mentioned by numerous people, and there's an American colleague of mine, Cliff Adelman, who talks about ratcheting up. It's all in the verbs. The verbs become progressively more testing. Describe, fairly easy. Analyze, more difficult. Compare and contrast, tricky. There are lots of ways, and this is what we're expecting. The cognitive abilities and skills of our learners must be ratcheted up. We must demand more from them as they go through a system. We mustn't allow it to just sit at a low level, which is why we need levels and level descriptors. And then, Shafiq's smiling. He's seen this slide before. But ALT, assessment, learning, and teaching. If we have learning outcomes, we have to be able to assess them. Otherwise, they are meaningless. Therefore, the assessment drives the learning, and the learning drives the teaching or the facilitation of learning, if you want to even put it that way. Crucial difference. So we don't have TLA, teaching, learning, and assessment. We have ALT, assessment, learning, and teaching. Student-centered. Volker's mentioned this as well. There was a discussion in the Times Higher that somebody mentioned earlier. I wrote a letter a couple of weeks ago. It was a response to an article, and I said, what is important is what students need, not what students want. And we know what they need if we are smart, and we are smart because we work in universities. And therefore, we use our skills and our knowledge. Framework, Russian dolls, everything's contained, everything's complex. If you look at credits, you've got to look at learning. If you look at learning, you've got to look at recognition of prior learning. If you look at recognition of prior learning, you've got to work out the learning outcomes and the competencies and the skills. All of these relate to frameworks. The frameworks relate to qualifications. The qualifications relate to levels. The levels relate to the purpose of a university, which is the passing on of learning and research. So it's all highly linked. Time, to a lifelong learner, it's no use saying to them, it's a 4-year degree. Recognition of prior learning. Well, I've worked for 10 years in a lab. I've got all this skill, all this knowledge, and I want that recognized. So you might indicate to them the volume of learning. To achieve 10 credits, it takes the typical learner, or the average learner, 20 hours or 25 hours per credit, so 250 hours of learning time you would think would be associated with 10 credits. That gives the person an indication of what level of effort they have to put in to achieve the credit, to achieve the learning, to achieve the credit, to achieve the mark. And as was said before, the grade, the mark, is different than credit. So, bottom up. This is what we're about. This is what we do. So, this is on the website. We're short of time, and I don't intend to go through this. It was a slide that I borrowed. I was going to say stole. I borrowed from a colleague, Raimondo. So, this is how we build our courses. This is what we do with regards to it. And if we look on the right-hand side, then we can see the way the credits are. And this relates to Folker's slides 13, 14, and 29, I've noted, I think. So, so if you look at that, then we'll see that. On ECTS, we've heard a lot about ECTS. It's a credit system. There are other credit systems. Certainly the Carnegie unit in the United States, the input-driven model, I think is being severely tested by new delivery patterns, and seat time, as they refer to it, is not the great thing that is very useful any longer. And it's back to what we heard before, input-output. Output is what we're about. We want to see what people know, understand, and be able to do. And being very sad, I have some business cards, and on the back of the business cards it says, know, understand, and be able to do. Because I think it's the mantra of what we're about. We're about learning. So lots of aspects are around that. Quality assurance, quality of learning is, of course, important. Recognition of non-formal, informal, experiential learning. Transfer, not an easy task. Not an easy task between, say, a 2-year institution and a 4-year institution. Between 1 degree and a different degree. Between countries, it becomes more complex. Between systems and cultures, it becomes even more complex. But we can do it. I'm not going to be Obama, but we can. I don't sleep enough to have a dream. I'm on planes all the time. So ECTS at a micro level as well, student workload and learning outcomes. That gives credit and its application. Transparency and quality assurance. Learner is expected to know, understand, and be able to do after the process of learning. An indication of time, and I like volume of time rather than linear time. I think it's a better help for a learner than linear time. We talked about tuning before, and I always talk about tuning bubbling up to meet qualifications framework bubbling down. And really, because they're trying to achieve the same thing. They're trying to achieve a description of learning that is relevant, that is transparent and understandable, and that is helpful. And that's what this is about. CUNY's subjects, qualification frameworks, are degrees or credentials, whatever we want to call them. And so they have a different emphasis. Tuning has an emphasis on the outcomes, on learning outcomes and competencies. And then that fits into a framework, and that framework fits into the architecture of the learning environment. Whereas a qualifications framework is the triangle inverse. So the future is about learning. Students want to learn. I think they are tested. And are tested not in the sense of being graded and assessed, but these are difficult times, and people are under stress. Quality is about learning. There's a story in the United States that there was a survey done, and the question was posed, what is the best law school in the United States? And the answer was Princeton. Now, the problem is Princeton doesn't have a law school. But reputation, so it must have a law school because it's the best. So we're not about reputation because 98% of learners don't go to Ivy League, Oxford, Cambridge, University of Vienna, University of Barcelona. Lots of learners go to other forms of learning. We've talked about degree mills before, private providers, for-profit, and the stresses and strains that the learner and the systems are under. Lifelong learning in a fast-changing world is a must. It has to, because everything goes out of date. What the term is, I think, is that the rate of decay is fast. And the knowledge base decays quickly, and therefore the credential or degree can as well. Skills and abilities will last and develop, jobs will change. Think of a spider's web, think of the American graph. Everything is changing. But skills, the abilities, the competencies are there for a lasting time. Know, understand, and be able to do. And so finally, Arthur, you'll be very pleased. Can the status quo last? I asked myself this question, and I did actually sit and think, rather than just thinking, I wish I could go and play tennis, or I wish I could play golf. I do wish I could play golf. I go to play golf, but I'm just not very good at it. Can the status quo last? No. It just can't. Globalization is a fact. I went to a conference in Copenhagen in September, and Marijke van der Vende, she was posing the theory that globalization is here, it is a fact, which I think it is. Internationalization is what is being tested now, because internationalization rests upon the institutions and the students and the faculty and the administrators, and that is being tested severely. Information is needed, transparency. Again, what is the learner applying for? What will it enable them to do? Can the employer, because employability is a bit like apple pie and mom. Ask any rector, vice rector, is what your students do after they have studied important to you? Yes, of course it is. It has to be. Now it's how we balance that. Useful tools do exist. I hope in this rapid delivery you have seen some of the tools and some of the possibilities. And I do believe this. If the academy leads, then a good outcome can be achieved. The faculty, the academy, the universities, we are about learning, and we are about knowledge, and we are about knowledge transfer, and we are smart, and it's not just that we're good at car parks. And I think Henry Kissinger said the trouble with the universities and faculty is that so little rests on what they do. But I think the future does rest on what we do, and we do owe it to the learners. Because if we don't provide what they want, then we're all in deep, deep problems. Thank you very much.
Much indeed, Tim. Your contribution and the other contributions, I think, are now open. If I may, just focus. Come, just move in here.
No.
Take the other chair. Okay. Well, there's enough chairs to go around.
When the music stops,
okay.
You sit down.
So this is musical chairs in reverse. Okay, just any question you want to put to Tim, or any other issue you would like to bring up to the panelists. And then I would also like, for you, then I have prepared the question of, has anything happened since this morning with regards to your project? I will ask you then, just to warn you. The one you introduced this morning about
working.
Yeah.
To join.
Yeah. So I was just wondering whether something had happened in the course of the day, but you can report on that a little bit later, and I will ask Volker to react to the afternoon, like what have you found? Okay, so we are pretty flexible and pretty open. There is an intervention back there, and where's the young man with the microphone?
Gone for tea.
Or coming? Great. Okay, so the gentleman over there.
Okay.
Just a question, if I may. Thank you for a great presentation. Actually, it's very challenging and enlightening. One, I would start with the end. It's a brief question. Will globalization last? If the status quo does not last, will globalization last? And when you think that globalization is the way ahead, are you thinking of also all these forms of resistance to globalization? Along with that, the problem that we are encountering, that like in Morocco, the EFD is facing lots of problems, is that exactly some colleagues, some university people whom you're betting on as the torch leaders seem to resist that idea of globalizing a particular form of education. Thank you.
Okay, I'll try to answer those. Start with the second question. I'm not a proponent of globalization. I think it's just a fact. And I think with the internet, which is not going to be put back in its box, it's there, and therefore everybody, we can't keep anything secret. Look at the news. People have got their phones out, and everywhere you go, we are bombarded by information. Now, what worries me for the future is, can students actually learn to analyze that information? Because there is a fear that I have that people begin to think that information is what it's about. And of course it isn't. It's analysis is what it's about. So that was the second question. Is globalization here to stay? I can't see communication being put back in the box. It just seems to be going on exponentially. And the third part of the question was... well, why I do that is because I get fed up with universities being knocked, with faculty being knocked, with academics being knocked. Oh, it's them, the dinosaurs. And there are a lot of... we are not good examples because as they say, it's my wife who kindly points out to me that I was born in the first half of the last century. But there are lots of young faculty, academics, and even we older ones. You know, we're engaged with this. We want it to go forward. And of course, you know, there are doctors who don't like change. There are dentists who don't like change. There are people who work in Starbucks who don't like change. So, you know, we are no different than the rest of society. But I do believe that the best people to do this are the people who know about it. And I am brave enough or foolish enough to believe that there are so many people of goodwill that this will succeed.
Okay.
My question or comment is that you mentioned that in 2020 the goal of Europe is to have a 40% in higher education. In the States it's 60%. From our experience in Jordan, I think this reflects also on other Arab countries which are represented here in this conference or this seminar, we have a huge enrollment. We're over the 60% mark in Jordan, for example. So our problems are a little bit different. What we look at is not the numbers that we want to enroll, but what we look at is the quality. Yeah. What we lack, we have a lot of knowledge-based education. We need skills. Yeah. Because as you said, with the ever-changing environment, that's what the students need. And this is what we should reform. And I see it through the learning outcomes and defining them. We can actually help that. But we would like to focus on that as our goal in this seminar and for the future. Thank you.
Sure. If I may just quickly respond. I agree entirely. As I say, it's all a matter of national context. But I do think, and there is early indicators from the Quality Assurance Agency in England that students, if you excuse it, they get learning outcomes. They understand, oh, that's what it's about. That's what I've got to do. And therefore they engage with their learning, and therefore the quality does go up. So it's a two-way push. I think the system generates a better quality, and the learner demands a better quality because they understand what is expected of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, if I may compliment actually or add on to my colleague's comment, it is not only quality but also relevance and the job availability, because we have severe problem in all three components, as a matter of fact, and even the good ones, which means satisfy the quality and the relevance, there is a huge demand to finding jobs to new graduates. In the morning we mentioned about the brain drain versus brain gain versus brain circulation. I don't know what does that mean, but I think we can really work together, Europe and the Middle East, in having a good formula where if our graduates are good enough to your market, we can make that sort of circulation in essence. Thank you very much.
Okay, then there's the two gentlemen over there. You have to help me with the French.
I'm raising a question about qualification and total quality. Are we aware that maybe we are excluding some of the mediocre, say, or those who cannot keep pace with the rate of training? Is that designed for the elite education? Maybe designed for the elites and may deprive the average who cannot access higher education. So maybe we will end up with some kind of knowledge poverty, and maybe this is going to induce certain social troubles later on from those who cannot access to higher education and become excluded maybe of the market. Are we aware of this in the future, and what we do to avoid this? We should take care, like probably we didn't have time to talk about another issue, another way to allow for those who cannot access higher education to access some kind of a vocational or professional that may give them the same level of social satisfaction the higher education is giving. Otherwise, we will have in our countries an elite graduates of the university and the mass who are more or less illiterate in quality education. This is my concern.
That too would be my concern. I think that the whole thing is about, we did talk about lifelong learning, recognition of prior learning, learning returners, and I mean, we have where in here where the attainment rate is already well over 60%. Because of course, again, different countries have different demographic spreads, and whereas Northern Europe has an aging population, other parts of the world have the vast majority of their population under the age of 25. But they do appear to be accessing education. The American foundation I work for is, its aim is widening participation, access, and a colleague there talks about the equity of preparation, equity of access, equity of study, and equity of completion. Because if we fail our people, then
Okay, Dr. Halal?
Yes. I think Tim and Volker have together put the stage of the global environment around equivalence, around many things, around internationalization, globalization, access to higher education, quality, etc. I think all the main issues in higher education are linked together. But I would remind myself and yourself, the good self, that we have an objective to achieve, which is equivalence. We need to refocus again on the main objective of the workshop and to work on equivalence. I know that tomorrow, and this is maybe after the permission with your permission, Arthur, tomorrow we would like, when you expose your cases, is to get us two questions. Whether you have succeeded a case, and let us know how you have succeeded, or whether you have a problem and you would like to share with us how to solve it. Because what we would like to do by the end of this workshop, we can continue on dinner having the discussion of globalization. Can we achieve 40%, as my dear colleague said, in our country, even in Europe, without having a marketplace for them? There is many strategic or mainstream issues that I think personally that it's above or maybe beyond this workshop. I would like, after your permission, is that we get back to reality. You have problems, you have confusion, we have difficulties in getting a student abroad and getting students in, whether they are our students or whether they are foreign students. In Egypt, I know that we had for a long period still that the minister has to interfere in the equivalence committee in order to facilitate the admission of foreign students, because the mindset of people is not on the same wavelength as we have. We would like to agree. Now, let us all in our countries with our European colleagues agree on a minimum of mindset on equivalence.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So on the list of speakers, I still have Monsieur from Morocco, and then I will ask you. Can the microphone move to the gentleman with the earphones?
Arthur, you might have to help me with the French.
Alors,
translate the question.
Merci. Je vais parler en français.
Monsieur Tim, to speak French. Mr. Tim, very slowly, but you can listen to the translation. You've talked about the problem of degrees mills, les usines à diplôme en français, degrees mills. Please speak closer to the microphone. You've talked about the degrees mills. And I think that we all suffer from these degrees mills, whether we're in northern part or in the southern part. It's a nightmare, and we have to fight against this. So the question of the degrees mills leads us to the state, the government responsibility, because we're talking about degrees which are produced, I insist, produced in states and not in the shadow. And we tolerate in institutions that can deliver these degrees that are going to circulate in the whole world. And fortunately, we have tried to limit the damage through networking. And in ICNARIC, for instance, network, which is a platform, very significant platform, to be informed about such and such degree or such and such institution. We have the merit network. And somewhere or another, we have reduced this load. And we talk about the state responsibility, but let's mention too the university's responsibility. When we talk about the Shanghai ranking, I think last March, there was a meeting in Paris at the UNESCO about the responsibility and the ranking of the universities. Because what about quality and quality assurance? Because we have a certain number of criteria, and we rank universities, and we Harvardize, to say so, Harvardize the international university. So all the universities want to become a Harvard University. So we should ask, what about the return when a graduate comes back to his country to look for a job? What's the value, or to another country? What's the job? What's the value of this degree? What is the effective assurance of such a degree granted by this type of university?
In my own country, there's a big debate going on at the moment about what are called degree awarding powers and about academic oversight, quality assurance. Because, which is a very small example, but degree awarding powers were granted to a private for-profit institution, the first one, and then it was bought by an American company. And it would never, ever envisage that degree awarding powers would go outside the jurisdiction. I have actually been involved in some research into degree mills and into lack of accreditation and whether or not quality assurance and more global recognition of accreditation processes. And certainly, I mean, if we're talking about refocusing towards equivalence, then if you don't have equivalent levels of requirement for quality and accreditation and degree awarding powers and the use of the title university, then all sorts of problems arise, even with ENIC, NARIC type of institutions to try to monitor this. I am involved in a project called the Global Charter, which is trying to set up a series of simple requirements for international students, certain minimum criteria. So it's a huge problem. It has to be addressed. Equally, the problem is that data from around the world shows that perversely it is poorer students with poorer qualifications who end up in the for-profit sector. And the failure rates are immense. Their lack of ability to repay loans is immense. and something does need to be done about it. Regrettably, at this moment, I have no answer. I do recognize the problem, and I do know that myself and others are trying to research into that and to work out how some remedy can be sought. But it is a large problem for employers and for the poor students.
Okay, so then I have the two gentlemen.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
There, and the ladies, and the gentleman over there, and monsieur over there.
Okay, again, coming back to the issue of equivalence and recognition. If it's difficult for us, at least for our region, to meet the challenges posed by the traditional environment of learning, so how are we going to meet the challenges when you add what you call the non-campus based environment of learning? It will be more difficult, I think.
You can answer that one, Volker. You've been very quiet. Go on.
Okay. Can you answer that? About the, yeah.
It's on.
It's on.
It's on?
Yeah.
I can't see it. I hope I understood your question correctly. You said, how can we guarantee, sorry for repeating it, if more and more education is done outside our areas and outside our fields? Well, for me, the development in my own country is significant for that, because we have now moved on from assuring the quality of programs to assuring the quality of the systems, to have a quality system working to be able to check the quality of all where they award their degrees. We call it system accreditation. And I've just participated last week in the first one. We have in Germany now perhaps 2 or 3. The first one for myself. And it has taken us about 3 times going to this institution, visiting each visit for at least 2 days, talking to all the people, students, analyzing a lot of paper, and the institution still has to do many, many corrections to understand what quality assurance means. Because also in my own institution, we have always said quality is what we say, but never thought of assuring the quality in a neutral way, in a way in which is validated by neutral organizations. And I'm still doubtful that we develop our institution to this extent that all of them are able to do it. I believe there will be several who will understand this, and they will be re-accredited, but everybody perhaps not. And there's the danger. It's because you remind me of the example. It was a private organization, and I just thought, if that was sold to the Americans, what would be the effect? Americans stand for just outside investor. What does that mean? I just started to think I have no solution to that. My only solution is this can never be forever. It always has to be revised. There has always to be a kind of re-accreditation. And it means we are at the beginning of understanding it. Just to complement this, I like to a certain extent the German system that we also accredit the institution as such before a university can, it's like the university charter, before it can start delivering programs. But many people do not know that, and many people go to institutions which are not accredited as a university. They just call themselves with an international name, English name, and people believe in this. And that is dangerous. And the next step is, when a student registers with an institution, he has a right to get a certain degree for which he registered, because we make a promise. The promise we make in legal terms is, here is the program,
if you do your part, investing, you student, whether he's average, normal, or typical or abnormal, then you will get this degree which has recognition with it. But we are at the beginning of developing that, and many people don't understand this promise. So sorry for that, but there I see it is our job. It is not the state job. I don't want that the state dictates that. I want that we have peers who develop you with your enthusiasm, and that we learn this kind of culture. Culture is learned. That we learn this culture to speak to each other openly, also in the sense of, come on, you have to amend this. You have to improve this. This is not good enough. Not saying you are an idiot. No, you can develop. But, sorry.
There was one question, there was one issue. In fact, I think Tim, looking at the demographic development in Europe, was thinking that the student of the future, and that maybe even the nearer future, is not going to be the student that I was when I started at the age of 18, post-secondary school, a regular degree program, not worrying about my job and so on. But we get a greater diversification. We get students who leave university after a bachelor and will come back years later for a master. We have non-traditional students and so on. This may not be the case in the Arab countries at the moment. So this is maybe a regional problem in some parts of the world, but not in other parts of the world. In like what we heard, maybe there is the other problem of, are you overqualifying people for a labor market that does not exist? And that poses a different kind of problem. But still, the question of equivalence of programs here and there remains, irrespective of the student population. Okay, so may I give the floor to the next colleague?
Yes, hi again. I'm Shafiq Mokbel from Lebanon. I would like to say first thanks to Tim for this, as usual, excellent presentation. But I go back to equivalence, and I put myself in, I will do some imagination because I never done before, in the shoes of someone who's looking to a file for equivalence. So if I am here to look at such a file, I have two forces on me. The force of the one who is applying. I would like to give him his rights in terms of recognition of his competences, skills, and personal values and personal competences. But on the other side of this line, I would have also to protect the society by providing my society with degrees, with qualification that are at a level that is recognized. If I look at the spectrum in this way, so I have two things, two major forces, and I'm trying to find a central point in it. And to make a judgment, what I need is few things, not a lot. I need some information from the applicant who is applying for an equivalence, and I need to make sure that the information are reliable. And from the other side, I need some information what the society understand when I say this application is equivalent to this level, what is the understanding of the level in my society, and it should be also reliable in my society. So quality assurance, information, and qualification framework, and description with learning outcomes and tools that our professors provided us. Now I go to my question to Dr. Hilal. I am supportive for the process that has been presented to us in this morning, just because every process at the regional level is helpful, is really helpful. But really, I do not understand how such a process that has been presented would answer the question, maybe simple, maybe out of, I am not a specialist of recognition and equivalence. Maybe they are stupid questions, but I do not understand this process how it can lead to the answers I am looking after, first. Second, the process itself has not been discussed with us. Although I'm not opposed, but it has not been discussed, and we are just putting names against boxes. And I think it's not, well, maybe it would work, and I hope it would work, but it's not the way I would proceed in doing this. We need to find out at the regional level, because we have some effort to do at the national level. It's not a regional issue. It's a national issue to see, I would like to have degrees qualified or recognized at this level and this level, and has those features in terms of competences, of skills, of personal competences. I need a description which is national. I need to have information. So MERIC, this is an excellent example. Waking Up MERIC is an excellent example. So a kind of regional connected to international to NARIC information system. I need to have some way to sense the competences and how they are evolved at the international level. So I am really sorry, but the process presented for me does not provide me. I don't see how it can provide me those answers. Yeah. I'm sorry for.
Thank you. Maybe we misunderstood each other. I didn't present to you a process or procedure that is regional. It does not exist. What I presented to you, as I said, as we wrote on the beginning, it's a reflection and some difficulties we have. What I presented to you is a case study in Egypt that we faced, and we developed a proposal to solve it, and it worked. It's a success story, or it's a, let us say, it's a solved example that we faced. Maybe.
The volunteers. I'm talking about the process that you would like to establish at the region. I'm not against. I repeat. I am for such a process. But
yeah, I tackle it. What we need to do, nothing will be regional. Nothing would be successful on the regional level before having something successful on the national level. I think we do agree on that. You cannot participate in the regional activity while you don't have a national activity successful. It doesn't make any sense. It will be like we use Volker and Tim to work with us on the qualification framework in Egypt, exactly like this. They are experts, and they will come to help us in Egypt on the national qualification framework. This is not a regional work. It's a consultation or advice or consultancy that they will do. What we need to do is, I think the main problem, having working on technical level, on the strategic level, on political level, this is very important, where we have some obstacles. We need to agree on certain things. Let us come to this famous table. This famous table is we have some points here that some colleagues proposed to add more or to remove some of these. This is, a proposed list that we think that there are some issues, if we agree on it, we should start some sort of a regional cooperation. There is no regional, there is the MERIC, it's called the MERIC, yes? MERIC, there is the MERIC, exists, but, how many of you have worked with MERIC? You are experts, and yes, 1, 2, 3, 4, out of 44, it's 10%. 10% have worked with a network. It's good to have this network. It exists. It maybe have done excellent job, but it's not popular, so that we didn't refer to them to solve our problems. We need to enhance them. We need to give them more power, more tools in order to be active. Is it clear? Maybe I didn't understand your question.
I apologize if I don't want to polarize. It's not the purpose. But again, the question was, because maybe I am just a beginner. I am not so old and not so special.
Well, all beginners, don't worry.
But I do not understand how. Maybe what I said at the beginning, my understanding of equivalence is wrong. Maybe, but I do not see how this process or what the items that you have listed here.
This is not a process. This is a list of activities.
Okay, list of a series of for me a series of activity define a process. So maybe I'm wrong also. So, but
it will achieve an objective.
Okay, it will achieve an objective. So the objective is to serve equivalence. So yes. Maybe I do not see clearly, but I don't see how this sequence of activities will lead to serve in a transparent way the equivalence. And again, I would say something else, not to be provocative. I am supportive because we need anything. At a minimum level, we need anything at the regional level. So I am supportive. So to start with, I am not against. But I think we need to think the list of activities a little bit more. One. Two, when we start defining networks like the one you have done, there is a crucial question that comes first to our eyes, how this will be governed, the governance of such networks, the animation of such networks also need a lot of reflection. So I'm just expressing, maybe I'm too much direct, but I'm just expressing my concern that such a list of activities will be good as a result of a workshop, but may not lead to the ultimate goal of organizing equivalence at the regional and interaction with the international level.
Let me ask you a question. What is your objective of the equivalence in Lebanon? What would you go home?
I think I said how I see equivalence. I say maybe I'm too naive. It's just I put myself in the shoes of someone who evaluates a file coming for equivalence, and I say for me it's very simple. You have two forces. We don't need to have a wrong decision regarding the person who is requesting the equivalence, neither a wrong decision regarding the society that is delivering this equivalence. So it's yes. The intersection of two forces.
Yes.
And I say for me this need information, quality assurance, an idea, a good represent. I don't see how. So if you explain to me, I will be very happy.
Let me maybe, or I leave the floor to Arthur and Fuad. To answer your question, first, we have to agree on terminology. Maybe if we have to agree is that what we mean by degree is the same thing in your mindset and in my mindset and in the mindset of the society. Okay? We need to agree on a way, a procedure, that when a Lebanese student comes to Egypt, when I look to his file, I'm not biased, neither for him nor for the society. Yes, take the terminology. Okay.
In a humble way, very humble. I am not at that level. I have neither political nor administrative nor nothing. I am just a professor at university. But if we take terminology, if yourself and me agree on a common terminology, this would not say that all the people working in Lebanon will accept the same terminology. Maybe in Egypt, yes, but in Lebanon, I think, in Lebanon we do have this diversity. So agreeing on a common terminology and common rules, it's something.
But you have it.
No,
we should.
Have it. Yeah.
You have it and you apply it.
So I agree. Okay.
No, what I mean is that in Lebanon, you have a definition of whatever is equivalence or full-time equivalent or recognition. You have it, you apply it, okay? You already, I don't discuss your definition, but you have something that you apply, okay? I have the same thing that I'm applying. Now, in order to facilitate the mobility and the acceptability of yours of your students and my students in both countries, we, it doesn't matter who are we, it could be yourself and myself, it could be the experts here, should understand each other. Otherwise, this student will never move.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's 5:05. Somehow we'll have to find out, because they're waiting, I suppose, for the visit to Barcelona University. I will not on the Merrick. Okay. Well, then I'll just take you one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay.
There must be a rhyme.
Thank you very much. Well, I was fortunate to be part of the preparatory team that worked in 2007 for the first ever and last Euro-Mediterranean Ministerial Conference on Higher Education and Scientific Research that took place in Cairo in June, I think, 2007. That produced what we call the Cairo Declaration. And I have to confess that I was the one from Egypt speaking about higher education in the region from the south. And it was my first time to hear this word, magical word, MERIC. Although I am working in the Tempest since 2002. And when I looked at the internet at that time and searched it, I Googled the word MERIC. I didn't find anything. NARIC, maybe, but MERIC, no. And in 2010, I was again, or 2009 maybe, I was again in the same group preparing for the second Euro-Mediterranean Conference on Higher Education and Scientific Research. And I remember very well sitting in Brussels with the officials of the EU, and they were saying, we were preparing the documents. Of course, you know how these conferences are being done. Usually the declaration is prepared 2 months before the conference takes place. Ministers are here just to sign, and that's it. But we were preparing that famous document at that time. And again, the EU people came with, we have to put MERIC. MERIC is good. MERIC is very good. MERIC is marvelous. I mean, this is the word. This is what we have to do for this region. Nothing else will work but MERIC. And again, I went to the internet and I Googled it, and I found nothing. Today, we were speaking about MERIC again, and I went to the internet again, and I searched about it, and there's nothing. I mean, I'm puzzled. I searched, of course, for NARIC, and I found that there are some offices here and there in Europe helping people for equivalence of degrees. Maybe it's an administrative office, maybe something. But if I look on the ground, at least in Egypt, I started asking Professor Ahmed Abou Haija from Jordan, I hope that I'm not giving you a hard time, did you hear about MERIC? He said, yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, we heard something. We've heard something called MERIC, but we really don't know what is it. So apparently, no one knows. Apparently, there is something. Apparently, there is something called tuning. I'm fond of tuning. I prepared a presentation for our hearers like 2 weeks ago about tuning and the tuning methodology and what have been done in Latin America and so on. Maybe I'm biased. But, well, anyway, let's say that MERIC exists. Tuning exists. Qualifications Framework exists. But people, we have to agree, all of us, on a proper methodology. As Volker said, steal a methodology from wherever, and we will help you. I will be able to help you. I can go to the internet and Google it, and I'm a gadget guy, so I can get you a lot of information about this. And let's do something. But let's start from where people ended.
Right. Can you pass the mic to the gentleman over there?
Clarification about this form. I participated in the drafting of it. Maybe I change the word agree. Agree, we don't want to agree now. We want to start a process with one responsible on it. He's going to prepare, collect data. We heard a lot of definitions, and then send it to all the NTO who here are interested, so that each one of them, each NTO, will consider maybe the appropriate definition of equivalency for him to start with. this will be a harmonized, more or less, definitions, allowing the diversity, and allowing also for each one of them to tailor the definition to. This will be the same for the network. The process is the topic leader and those are working with him, they go and survey all the definitions we already talked about, and then they will sort it, select it, sort it, and then send it to us. There will be some kind of a debate on the web, so that probably the Lebanese will say, we accept this, go ahead, so that when we talk together, we don't want to have, we have the same definition. This is not the meaning. I know that this is the definition of Lebanese, this is the definition of Egyptian, so that maybe we start thinking about the common parts of it and try to expand it. If we are doing the same and we don't agree on the terminology, probably we'll maximize the differences. We need to be aware of what, and this is in all the 7 points. And maybe let us fill this and say in 3 months from now, 1 month from now, we need to talk about the results, and we need the topic leader to send us every week, every month about his, okay? So this is a right start. We need to apply it for all the 7, and maybe if you need to add one of it, it's fine.
Okay, the gentleman in the last row. You can just throw it.
We know that there are two types of universities. We have traditional universities that are using face-to-face systems, and we have open universities or non-traditional universities that are implementing or following e-learning, distance learning, etc. My question is, do you follow the same procedures in accrediting certificates granted from both universities? For example, in Palestine, if I want to study for a PhD and I will study on using online from Manchester or from MIT or Harvard even, they will not recognize or accredit my certificate in this case. Thank you.
Was that a question to anybody?
It's a difficult question. I think it's not an answer. It's a comment. Not all countries, even in Europe, in all over the world, recognize or give equivalence to distance learning universities degrees. To my knowledge, in the Arab region, the Conference of the Ministers of Higher Education has issued a decision that a distance or e-learning degree could be recognized in any Arab countries, providing that this program has 25% of the program face-to-face or contact hours during the program. Less than that, there is a recommendation, but nevertheless, not all countries recognize the e-learning. We have in the region, and I think there is some good reasons behind, is that there are many, let me say, light programs in e-learning, and even no programs at all, and it's just a fake certificates that were given. This is a major problem that we are facing in the region. It's not only in Egypt.
Okay, so may I now ask the two ladies, one after the other, then I will move to the first row. Then there was the colleague over there and another colleague over there.
Okay, since morning we've been really hearing a lot about learning outcomes, higher education reform, teaching, faculty, programs, etc. But I really haven't heard anything about research. Now, when faculty members are promoted, 99% of the points or weight is given to how much research you published. Now, this will affect in a way the quality of teaching for this faculty member on the students and the learning outcome, because he will not really give that much weight to teaching. So I don't know how, I mean, any of the plenaries could, you know, talk about it. How could you integrate such a valuable, you know, issue into all of these topics? A second point, I would love to see also if some of the participants are from the private sector, because a lot of people, when they talk about academia, they talk about academicians as if they are separated. I mean, like simply, they will say, oh, he knows nothing about politics. He's just simple, you know, academician. I mean, I hear that, you know. So if you involve also the politicians and the private sector, I mean, it's an interdisciplinary. You cannot really separate academia from all these, or even community, because these could be, you know, restructured in the programs or curricula. Thank you.
Okay, Volker, would you want to answer this question?
Thank you very much. Well, we spoke a little bit about it during the break, and I can assure you that, for example, to be promoted is not the right word in the German environment, but to get more pay. We have certain packages. Now, every professor gets a foundation and a certain bottom of money. But to get more, now you have to do things. One is research, but the other one is teaching. So we have introduced a few years ago, not everybody likes it, for the first time, that also through the way of improving your teaching, being evaluated, you may increase what you get in your pocket. Whether that is a good approach, I don't necessarily like to share you. If I take the human resource approach for personnel management, I totally disagree with that. But it is one way. And as regards research, I'm always a little bit hesitant because it really also depends what is it you're researching in. We have different understanding. We talked about terminology. So I'm not totally convinced that there is this block of research which leads to certain promotion, or there's this block of teaching. I think it is very important that we understand that both have to go together, and that you maybe accept a few specialists, but otherwise teaching and learning have to be together. You should not only teach, because then you become like a machine. You need some refreshment, be it through a sabbatical, be it through some other means, be it through at the same time. So I don't really like the total split between the two. And that reminds me of another element which was discussed here. And I saw also that the paper was distributed, in which it was very strictly said, and you may use it for your papers as well, the old traditional way of quality assurance, plan, do, act, check. And I think there is the mistake, because that is based on feedback. Feedback systems are boring. Feedback system means you wait till you have a result, which happens in 5 years, and then you act again. We have to, linked to research, anticipate what the future will be and react and act permanently. Permanently, continuously. There's continuous improvement. We cannot wait till we have a result because it takes so long. We have to do permanently our research, translated directly into our work of teaching. Again, no separation. Because if we realize what's going to happen in the future, we have to learn it first, because it will be changed. And for me, learning is changing. Learning means not being the same as the beginning. I talked to a colleague and I said, I always ask my student at the beginning of a semester, look at each other. How does he look or she look like? By the end of the term, he and she will not be the same, because she has learned. She cannot escape it. And learning means changing. So I think we have to understand it. And that reminds me, and then I really finish. When 20 years ago, you will not believe it, but with the European Commission, we had a program on skills needs. to identify what are the skills needed in future. And I led a group with companies, academics and companies. And we talked about qualifications. We never reached an agreement. And I do not remember after how many sessions, suddenly the company said, well, if we employ somebody, she should be able to do this, that, etc. And suddenly it was easy. We had found a language how to communicate. And I think the language today is the learning outcomes. What should a person know and learn? And then you can design your frameworks. When we did the European Qualification Framework for Lifelong Learning, we did not talk about what is the qualification like in the qualification framework with the Dublin descriptors, higher education, where we started with what is a bachelor, what is a master, doctorate. No, we started in what is the progression of learning. And we designed 8 stages, not talking about qualifications. And always the chairperson said, well, we are now using words. Do you understand it in your language? Does it mean something in your language? And up to the very end, we never asked about a qualification. We said, now think about it. These are the levels. What does that mean within your environment? And I think this is important. Because the qualifications, it does not matter in terms of learning outcomes. What Tim said, it doesn't matter where you achieved it, how you achieved it, whether distance learned with contact hours or without, and at which university. The main thing is they are there and they are quality assured. So we rather have to think, design the progression of learning, look at the European Qualification Framework, and establish a system which guarantees the quality of it. So that when a student registers with the university, he can rely on the quality of the degree and does not have to worry. Because one of the first motives of a student not to go to a certain university is uncertainty about a degree. That should not happen. And it's our responsibility that the student should have this kind of security. Sorry for being a bit longer.
Okay. Yes, please.
I have a comment about what's so-called non-traditional education, or what, as our colleague said, online learning. In fact, Ministry of Higher Education in Jordan recently recognized some institutions which offer online learning. And they started to equalize their certificates. But of course we have certain rules and criteria for recognizing universities which offer online learning, and that was published in the official gazette. We also recognize the top 500 universities on the world, which is published on Shanghai. The top 500 universities, which was published by Shanghai University. So any university that offer traditional education or non-traditional education, which is this is so-called non-traditional education, means online and e-learning education. We made a differentiation between it and between open learning system. The open learning system, the student has to be on campus or to attend 25% face-to-face lectures in the university, but online and e-learning, you don't have to attend at all. You can do it by yourself, by online, and but that will be shown on the certificate. When we issue the certificate for the student, we just write on it online. So he got the degree online in order to be differentiated than regular student. Thank you so much.
We pass the mic to the gentleman here, and then we will move over to you.
Thank you, President. I would like to say that I hope that you will not complicate the process for us in the ministries. The equivalence purpose, the recognition is a very difficult and complex issue, Believe me, we work every day. We have in Lebanon, especially Lebanon, we have talked too much about Lebanon. We are in a multi-diverse system in Lebanon. We have the American, the French, the European, and we treat with all these subjects. We have a commission that works since 1955. We have our proper experience. And I believe that in Lebanon, within the constitution, we have the liberty and the autonomy of the universities. We respect their autonomies. We have the recognition at the internal level. We make recognition for the degrees, for every degree in the university in Lebanon. And we'll see this tomorrow, I will present it. For outside Lebanon, we make what we call equivalence. It's not our role as ministers to look what every university do in Egypt. It's the role of every, I believe, accreditation process or quality assurance process outside. And I will say that the European networks that you have now, I have met in the ministry in Lebanon till now 5 to 6 visits this year from NARIC, from Suez, from France, from Belgium, because they are working very well and we work too much with them. There is the diploma mill, and now we have another problem. There is what we call the accreditation mill. I have received this year a degree from a university in a country, in a European country. And we said to them, well, this is a degree that we don't recognize because we know that this university doesn't exist. It's an office. They said, well, it is accredited. I said to them, I would like to have the accreditation papers. They bring to me the accreditation papers. I discover that the enterprise, it's a kind of, society, who has created this university, has created also an accreditation, body who accredited the university. Then it's a very complex, believe me. We need to collaborate to reinforce the MERIC, the NARIC, and thank you.
This is a database.
It's very good. Thank you.
Okay, and now the gentleman behind Kristen is definitely the last speaker I can accept, because otherwise we're never going to have any dinner tonight. I mean, we can go on until midnight.
Okay, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Actually, I thought I'm sitting on the wrong side. I should next time go over there.
No way.
Too late.
Anyway, I would like to emphasize on the importance of equivalence, not only for the TIMBOS and the EU, but for all participating countries. But we have to think about at the national level, we have to ask the question if there is a policy adopted at the governmental level to go for qualification framework. If there is no, then it's pointless to share discussion because we have to solve the first issue. The second point is the importance of equivalence is for all parties, all stakeholders. At the national level, it's considered as a reform for higher education at the end of and also for the economy. And I can give an example. For the individual level, it's also important because it solves the problem for the individual and give him better mobility and also more opportunity. From my understanding and previous meetings we shared with the European Union and with World Bank, I anticipated that the developed countries and the less developed countries, they have a mutual interest in accomplishing equivalence. For example, Europe might, in the next coming years, might face a problem in having less access to higher education. Whereas in the less developed countries, like in the Middle East, like in Arab countries, like in my country, we have over access to higher education. But our market cannot really absorb the graduates. So if we achieve the equivalence, it's for the benefit of all of us. In our case, when we cannot find employment for our graduates and they have equivalence and they can have mobility and work in Europe, for example, and bring money to the country, and in this case, I explained the economical aspect. So what I recommend, because this seminar is important also, but I don't see that, I might be pessimistic, but I'm always optimistic. I think and I recommend to the TIMBOS management team to to give more, to do more or arrange more activities towards this issue, because maybe whatever we achieve today and tomorrow, it will not fulfill our demands and needs. Thank you.
Just a short comment on the rankings. The lady from Jordan just mentioned the Shanghai rankings. This is based mostly on research. Most of us here outside Europe are not research-oriented universities. We are teaching universities. And there is nothing wrong with being teaching university. This is what is needed in our region. So if we say we will only accept distance learning from these 500 universities, and we are not part of them, it sounds a bit, to me, unacceptable. Thank you.
Okay. No, you are not going. I will not give you the chance to respond now. Sorry.
Can I have a last word?
You can have a last word on that,
Yes,
and then a very
please.
brief last word from here, and a very brief last word. Okay. So.
Please, we would like to have volunteers from different countries to deliberate about activities on different topics. And you may add topics, you may remove topics if you don't like it. What we need to create a dynamism in the region to converge towards something that we can understand in our countries. Please, if you don't mind, Dr. Fouad is coordinating this activity, and please do register yourself or propose someone who can be active in this network.
Okay, Volker, your last word?
Yeah. Whatever you do, don't forget the learner. If you award a degree, Bachelor Open Distance Learning, he will take the exam in Milton Keynes in England, Open University, or Verden University in Hagen. They will go, because there they get the bachelor, and that's what they want. So please don't forget the learner.
Okay, Tim?
Well, yes, I started off by saying it's all about learning, and I end by saying it's all about learning. I think equivalence is important because of the demands that the learners make and the demands that the other stakeholders make. People want to see what they are getting, what they are benefiting from, and what value is being added to the individual and therefore to their prospects. And I remember Volker mentioned earlier about, I think, a nation network. I was trapped by the volcano cloud in Berlin after speaking at the Asian network there. And one of the people from the Chinese ministry said, oh yeah, we have, I can't remember how million unemployed graduates, but in 3 years' time, they will have jobs. And we have to build for the future. We have to have an element of optimism. My glass is always half full.
Yes. Okay. And our seminar is half over.
No, half developed.
Half developed, far from being completed. And now